Okay, thank you everybody, and welcome to the third Zoom call of the Peter Tatchell Foundation. The first time we did this was just after Peter's protest in Qatar, almost a year ago to the day. And in June of this year, sorry, we did a Zoom. Could I ask you to mute yourselves, please? And we did this again in June, shortly after the Metropolitan Police apologised for its historic witch hunts against LGBTs. Let me just introduce myself to you all. My name's Simon Harris. I work on campaigns at the Peter Tatchell Foundation. The Peter Tatchell Foundation is 2 3/4 members of staff. I'm a half. Cal is our newest member of staff. Give us a wave, Cal. Is our donor administrator. And of course, the 2 full-time people are Peter and Pliny, who join us from Mumbai. Hello, Peter. Hello, Pliny. Bit of an interesting week for you. And we're going to come on to everything that's happened, including Pliny being followed to a museum by police on motorbikes and Peter being ordered to stay in his room. Peter, I want to start with the issue. And we're talking about the 2036 Olympic Games, which would be 100 years after perhaps the most infamous example of sports washing, the Nazi Olympics, the Hitler Olympics, that we all have seen those quite disgusting footage. But we have an example much nearer than 100 years ago. Only last year, this very time last year, Qatar hosted football's World Cup, football's biggest tournament. And of course, Qatar has a diabolical human rights record. Peter, who's expected to bid for the 2036 Games? And what is the problem with virtually every one of those countries?
Well, the main big bidders are expected to be China, Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, and Indonesia. They're the main ones which have really grave human rights abuses. There's some other ones as well, like Hungary and Poland, clearly not good on human rights, but nothing on the scale of those countries I just mentioned. And what is shocking is that at this stage, there is nothing to debar them from seeking to host the 2036 Olympics. And even though only just this week, the IOC Congress in Mumbai strengthened its human rights commitments, if you read the small print, it just talks about seeking to improve and require human rights advocacy and adherence. But seeking something is not the same as enforcing it. So even the new commitment, although I suppose in principle it's in the right direction, it doesn't actually have a real force of power.
I remember when Beijing was awarded the 2008 Games at the very beginning of this century, and everyone said they're going to improve their human rights, they're going to have the world watching them. They didn't. They made matters worse, and then they awarded the Olympic Winter Games last year. So the IOC doesn't have a great track record at improving things, does it?
Absolutely not. I mean, you would have thought that after the terrible persecution of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province, and of course the huge crackdown on democracy and civil liberties in Hong Kong, that the IOC might have rowed back with giving China the Winter Olympics last year, but they didn't. They just waved it through, and China got all the kudos, all the prestige hosting those games. So that's why I'm very much on to make sure they do deliver. And this is not just something we've done in the last couple of weeks. We've been lobbying the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, for many, many years, precisely in order to make sure that human rights are front and center. Obviously, we haven't had, not enough success. Put it this way, Qatar, when it hosted the Football World Cup, gave FIFA, the world governing body of football, assurances that it would make improvements. it did make some improvements, but nowhere near what it promised. And I think the same is applying with regard to the International Olympic Committee. They're getting promises and commitments, but their enforcement, their policy of ensuring that's actually fulfilled is very, very weak.
It is indeed. I want to come on to why you're in Mumbai. The International Olympic Congress is planning to meet on Mumbai. We've been planning to go there for months. The world's attention is understandably on the Middle East, but the police were having none of it. Talk to us what happened when they knocked on your door the other night.
Well, it was quite a shock. On Friday evening, the day after I arrived, I got this very loud thumping knock on the door of this very room. And there were 5 and then 6 police officers who came in and said they wanted to discuss information they had that we were planning to protest at the Congress International Olympic Committee. They were, to be honest, fairly personable. They weren't rude or aggressive, very firm, but clearly they had been monitoring us, certainly since we applied for our visas, I would have thought. They knew the hotel where we were staying. They came here. And, you know, they made it very, very clear that we would not be allowed to protest. When we explained why, the reason they gave was that it was a violation of our visa conditions, that we had come in as tourists, and we were only allowed in the country if we stuck to tourist activities. However, when I spoke to the Foreign Office in London, they said it's very unusual for the tourist visa conditions to be enforced so strictly. That this was an exceptional use, and of course, in the end, after a 2-hour grilling, or 1 hour 55 minutes to be precise, they went away, came back an hour later, and then served us with a Section 14 notice under the Foreigners Act of 1946, which threatened that we violated our visa conditions in any way by either protesting, lobbying, leafleting, or in any way going to the International Conference Centre where the Olympic chiefs were meeting. That would be a violation of our conditions, and we could face a maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment and a fine. Pliny, do you want to say some more?
Yeah, I mean, needless to say, it was very tense at the moment. And when we were being asked to show a passport, because I've got dual nationality, both Mauritian and British, and I hid my passport so well that I could find it. And at some moment, I was panicking, thinking, oh, somebody has set it up, has taken my passport. Well, actually, I've hidden it so well into my case that I couldn't find it for some time. And I think I was giving everybody else a heart attack. But luckily, I found it and explained to the person why I've got 2 passports. And I said, oh, you sure not Indian? And say, well, obviously, my ancestors are from India, but you know, I'm British and from Mauritius as well. It was a tense meeting.
I have to say, Pliny, we don't discuss Peter's security in great detail, but we have a messaging group with somebody who was helping us with security, and Pliny reports in the group that he's lost his passport and then goes quiet. And the security person in the group messaged me and said, I'm stroking out with Pliny. And I said, I'm just hyperventilating. But we were very pleased that you found your passport. I have to say that I made a bit of an error, because I was on a Zoom call with Peter and Pliny when the police came in one thing, and I thought I'd record the conversation. And I didn't realize that when I pressed record, it says on their iPad, this message is being recorded or something. And the policeman very sort of quickly shut the iPad lid so I couldn't listen in. Peter, you were then stuck in the room and they came back.
Can I just add something else?
Please.
Can I just add that on Friday morning, before the police came, on Friday morning, when we left the hotel, we were asked to surrender our room keys. which had never happened before. So we did. And of course, the question is in our mind, was that so that the police could gain entry and, I don't know, perhaps bug the room? We don't know. But it was very unusual that we were asked to surrender our keys. And when I came back to my room, some things had been rearranged. So I suspect they'd possibly been doing a search of the room as well. Who knows?
Who knows?
Saturday morning. Cleaning the room as well.
Saturday morning. We're just deciding how to proceed with our protest. If we are going to do a protest, probably not because of this order 14 that's been placed upon you. But there's another knock at the door, and things change somewhat.
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah. Well, so we were told as well that we are being encouraged not to use social media. So we have almost like a ban on social media for us, and so we were left to that. It was very strange that just two people here in their own rooms. The police was kind of so afraid that we were using our social media just to send information around. But we then afterwards, the next day afterwards, we got another knock. The police came back and told us they've got some good news. We thought initially the knock that came very late.
No, you're jumping ahead.
I think you jumped ahead.
On
Saturday morning, Peter.
The police came. Saturday morning, unexpectedly, the police arrived at about 10 a.m. in the morning. Again, about 4 officers, I think 4 or 5, and they told us they would advise us not to leave our hotel rooms. And when we asked why, they said the pollution outside is very bad. There's very heavy traffic, a lot of traffic congestion. You won't be able to get anywhere. So we said, "Oh, well, we've got masks. We can do it." And they said, "Well, no, you can't leave your room." And sure enough, when we tried to leave the room, we went downstairs. There were 4 police officers stationed in the lobby to stop us. So we were basically under house arrest. We couldn't leave the hotel, and mostly we couldn't leave our rooms. So we just spent the day in our rooms and did social media. And then, as Pliny just said, the police told us we should not be doing social media. They didn't like the fact that we were doing social media, telling the world what was happening to us and the way in which the protest had been banned and that we are also under police guard and effective house arrest.
Nobody keeps you off Twitter, do they, Peter?
Well,
you're allowed out.
We have had an extraordinary large number of IT technical problems, which may just be pure coincidence, but we have had a lot of problems. But we haven't stopped us, but it's just been very, very difficult.
It's like that. They're having a succession of coincidences. Maybe they're just coincidences, but the multiplicity of coincidences of logging in, of getting things that should be very easy peasy, just taking a long time, just makes you think. But we've got no proof, no certainty that anything will be done. But it's just a lot of coincidences. Just makes you think a little bit.
So I just add that before we came, where we did liaise with Indian activists because we wanted this to be a partnership. We wanted to work with them and team up with them and give them a voice to amplify their concerns. But in the light of the police surveillance, house arrest, and, well, intimidation and harassment, we decided to cut all contact with our Indian colleagues. And that's something that they wanted as well, because they were afraid of further repercussions. And we entirely understood. But we've kept this very, very, very secret. So the police don't know who our contacts are, and we've not made contact with them apart from just telling them that we're not going to be liaising with them for the sake of their security.
That's right. Actually, I've been on, I think, all of the Zoom calls with our Indian partners, and we were very much looking forward to well, Pliny was, because I'm not in India, looking forward to meeting up with the partners. And in fact, yeah, I was the one that took the decision that we could not, in all fairness, even meet up, because we wouldn't want to bring trouble down onto them. And I know the activists that I've had the meetings with is obviously a little disappointed, but it is what it is. Now on Sunday morning, you get a knock on the door.
Yeah, could just add, Simon, that we were being trailed everywhere we went. So if we left the hotel, we were followed on foot or on motorbike.
I'm just coming on to that, Peter. You're allowed out on Sunday. The first time we know that you're being tailed is, first of all, on Saturday morning before the call. Pliny goes for a walk and 2 police officers accompany him. You're allowed out on Sunday morning. Pliny is the first one to leave. Pliny, you have a tail, don't you?
Yeah, because I think I felt rather like in a spy movie, being James Bond or 007, because I was being followed by somebody, by a policeman, obviously, for quite some time, and because I was just doing some visit around and some places, and obviously I was being followed for some time, and then I stopped looking, but I think they probably realized that I was not doing anything special, nothing exciting, some boring sightseeing and going different places, and they probably gave up. But after some time, I just felt like I was constantly being followed. But I think Peter had a different tale whereby they followed him on motorcycle as well for quite a while.
Yeah, I went to meet up with Pliny well, first let me say that one of the very positive developments was that because of coverage in the Indian press, I was contacted by Tushar Gandhi, the great grandson of Mohammed, who expressed very strong support for what we were doing to help shine a light on the human rights abusing nations bidding for the Olympics. But also, he said that what happened to us is typical the repression of civil society here in India, that under the Modi government, increasingly lawful, peaceful civil rights and human rights activists are being harassed, tailed, followed, phones tapped, bugs planted. He said, what you went through is typical of what we go through all the time. But he was incredibly supportive of what we were trying to do, and has shared our briefing document with other human rights defenders here in India. Now, as I said, I was going on Sunday, was it Monday? Monday to the Gandhi Museum, which is quite far away. And as soon as I came out of the hotel, there were police minders there in the lobby. And when I called the Uber, more minders arrived, including a guy on a motorbike. And then the sub-inspector, just as I was getting into the Uber, the sub-inspector, who's been one of the main liaisons, came and knocked on the window and told the driver not to drive off. The driver had to wait until the motorcycle people were ready to follow. So I was tailed nearly all the way, and it's a long distance, to the Gandhi Museum by 2 police, a motorcycle, the lead one wearing a red helmet and with his headlight on, following a distance of about 100 to 200 meters behind all the way. And I put the film of it on my Twitter at Peter Tatchell, I think it was yesterday, and maybe retweeted it last night. But when I got close to the museum, I think they probably realized I wasn't trying to go to the IOC meeting, that I was genuinely going to the Gandhi Museum, and we didn't have any further trouble with them that day.
Okay, I just kind of felt that it was an incredible overreaction by the Indian police, Peter. What do you think? You've had a lot more experience of this than I.
Well, it was very reminiscent of, Russia, the different times I've been to Russia to support activists and human rights defenders there. But certainly they were more efficient than the Russians or the Qataris. In the case of Qatar, we managed to pull off the protest. But this time, effectively, we were grounded, so we couldn't leave the hotel to do the protest.
Well,
so that was
yeah. As the person who was with you in Qatar, I mean, that's why we sent Pliny, because I've done my being arrested with you. I think they've obviously worked out how we pulled can you just give me one moment? How we pulled off the Qatar thing. But I actually believe the police referenced the Netflix documentary about you.
That's right. The police on the second or third visit said they'd seen the Netflix documentary. So the viewing figures increased thanks to the local police department. But moreover, they were so impressed, they all demanded selfies. Yes. And of course, being nice people, we agreed.
Yes. I thought
and I think during and I was thinking, during the conversation that we had before with the police when they were telling us that, we're not allowed to stand to the protest because we're not Indian citizens and we can't distribute the leaflets. So we're trying to diffuse the situation a little bit. So I suggested to them, well, how about we just put the leaflets there in the center? The delegates can decide to pick it up or not. And we said, no, you can't do that. And then I asked them, you are Indian citizens. Maybe you could do us a favor, take the leaflets and give it to them. They thought, no, they might lose their job in this one. So,
well, that was very interesting, the conversation, because of course, the conversation went that we said, well, under the Indian Constitution, it guarantees the right to freedom of expression and the right to peaceful assembly and protest. But the police said those rights only apply to Indian citizens. Foreigners have no rights. Now, that is not what the Indian Constitution says. And of course, India has signed numerous international human rights conventions, which very clearly state that these rights are universal and make no distinction between citizens and non-citizens. So that's an interesting point, which we shall perhaps take up and pursue.
And there you can see on the thing, Pliny posing with a selfie with the police officers, if it will ever go into focus. So thank you, Pliny. Right. You've been out today. You may have been followed. You may not have been followed. Obviously, the IOC Congress is coming to an end. I want to come back to the issue, Peter. Why is sports washing so wrong? And why are we quite, as an organisation, as our supporters, quite animated about why sports washing is so wrong?
Sports washing is the attempt by dictatorial regimes to burnish their international image by hosting prestigious international events, to detract from their human rights abuses, to present another more acceptable image to the outside world. So it's being done by Saudi Arabia and Bahrain with the Formula One races. It was done last year by Qatar with the Football World Cup, and in 2018 by Russia with the Football World Cup. It is a tactic designed to give dirty human rights abusing regimes a more acceptable image. And we just think that we have to break through that, to expose it, to show that this is just a cynical attempt to use sport to deflect attention away from gross human rights abuses.
Well, I know the Indian police have tried to thwart us, but we won't be silenced on this issue. And the IOC will be looking at the 2036 games over the next 3 years. And the PTF, I'm sure, will be there all the way. If anybody's got any questions, very quickly, if you can just put them into the meeting chat, that would be very good. I would also encourage you all to visit a website called nosportswashing.com. There's a petition to sign. There's information about the campaign, nosportswashing.com. And there is also the briefing document that the police objected to quite strongly on there. I'm just letting somebody else in who's obviously coming a little bit late. And I think you can see when you read that document, it's not an emotional document. It is just simply a series of facts about the countries such as China, Indonesia, Qatar. And whilst Peter and Pliny were in Mumbai, the Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, visited Mumbai and announced that Mumbai would be hosting the games. Maybe a bit of a clue, Peter, as to why the police were a little over the top, a little bit nervous, a little bit scared, maybe. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm certain that the police were definitely not acting alone. In this room, when we're being quizzed, they would periodically get on their mobile phones and phone other people. In one case, they actually said, we have to check with higher ups, with senior people. I don't know who those senior people were they? Police, government officials, who knows? But those police were not acting off their own bat. They were acting on instructions. And it's very clear that, they were aware. I mean, it's pretty clear that they were aware that India would be announcing its bid to host the 2036 Olympics, and they didn't want any rain on that parade. And if you looked outside the Geo Conference Centre, where the Olympic Committee was meeting, it was just wall-to-wall posters, big pictures of Modi, Prime Minister, very clearly a propaganda push by him and his party. And it's very obvious they didn't want anything to detract and take away from the big announcement.
Indeed. Well, I'm delighted, as indeed somebody is in the chat room, that you're both safe. I have spoken to the pair of you so much in the past week. I'm kind of fed up of listening and seeing you, as I'm sure you are. I have never sent so many messages in all my life. I am absolutely delighted that you're safe. And yes, we're going to continue this campaign. And I hope that the IOC can see sense, really. I don't hold out a lot of hope, if I'm honest. What I will just say about Qatar last year, Peter, and you're talking about the police on their phones, that just comes back to me, and I'm just remembering that 40 was it 47 or 49 minutes that we're under arrest for, just less than 50, and how there was the two policemen in the car on their phones, and they were giving orders, having received orders off their phone. And I could only assume they were on the phone to the Interior Minister in Qatar. So I suspect something similar was happening to you. There doesn't appear to be any more questions in the chat box. I think I've covered all the points. I wish you both a safe journey onto your next destinations coming home.
No. Hang on. We've a couple more things to say. I mean, I want to pay tribute to the British Foreign Office for intervening very early on. George Casely, one of our Peter Tatchell Foundation trustees, got on to the Foreign Office as soon as we were placed under house arrest. And they then contacted me and then started making contacts with the police and with the government. And it was as a result of that the house arrest was lifted. We still, of course, were under police guard and surveillance, but we were free to leave, and we were followed, of course, but the actual detention in our rooms was finished. And that was, I think, pretty much entirely as a result of the intervention of the Foreign Office staff. So a big thanks to them for being on the case and for getting that house arrest lifted.
And now we are on compulsory vacations.
Great. Okay. Well, that was actually how I was going to end it. To pay attention, pay thanks to those people. So yes, thank you to George and the Foreign Commonwealth Office and the British Consulate Service for helping out, and all the people who have helped with the campaign and getting Peter and Pliny safely there, and obviously safely back as well. So thank you very much. And as I said, have a safe journey. If I can just ask all the people on the call to look at nosportswashing.com, and as I said, that briefing document on the left hand side, about 4 links down, is the briefing document. And I think you'd agree that the 2036 games at the moment is heading to really quite a despotic regime. Peter, Pliny, thank you. To all our subscribers, thank you as well. And I'm sure we'll see you again on an online call when we've got another big campaign to launch. So thank you, everybody. Thank you.